What would you pay for some 80s and 90s nostalgia? Tune in today to see what this super cool Scirocco 16 valve will bring.
Get those words!
That noise means one thing and one thing only. It means that you don't have anything better to do, so you're sitting around watching Bid Nerds. It's your daily nerd out on the most interesting car of the day from all the automotive enthusiast auction sites. Welcome to the show. My name's John Polnik. I'm your host, along with my partner, Michael Deeb. He's in San Francisco. I'm in Las Vegas. Michael Deeb, what up?
Yeah, San Francisco, home of the original Carzun Cafe, San Francisco.
That's true. And, it's interesting because, Carzun Cafe, we expanded Carzun Cafe into San Francisco. So now you'll have a Carzun Cafe, whereas we just took your football team and aren't giving it back. So, and it sounds like your baseball team's coming here too.
Not my team.
Sorry about that.
You could call Sahan. He lives in Oakland, and you could rib him with all that stuff. But Santa Clara got my football team, and my baseball team is still here. They just they're pretty good. They're actually pretty good this year, but most of the time they're not.
Well, all right, so sports ball. All right, so if you're new to this show, you're like, what is this whole Bid Nerds thing about? What we do is we identify the most interesting car of the day from all the automotive enthusiast auction sites, and then we make a prediction as to what we think that car will sell for. What will the results of that auction be after a conversation about that car? And then we go into the future, we reconcile our predictions with what actually happens. We do it. We have a time machine right here. So we'll make a bid. We'll go into the future and show you how wrong we are. And you can play along. It's a lot of fun. It's like The Price is Right. So do it. All right, Michael Deeb, what is the most interesting car of the day? I am pretty darn stoked about this one. I got to tell you.
Yeah, JP, I think I told you, my uncle sold Volkswagens right when I was turning like 15, 16 years old. So I kept thinking, like, if I was a good boy when I turned 16, they'd take me down to see Uncle Sam and I would get a Volkswagen Scirocco, because that would have been 1986, right? So here we are. Is this 1987 Volkswagen Scirocco 16 valve with a 5-speed manual on Bring a Trailer, offered out of Middletown, Connecticut, and showing just 74,000 miles. Jason Camissa has essentially the identical car to this, silver, black, I believe the year and model and everything. His is gently massaged, and he's a great driver, actually. As much as being a comedian and a know-it-all, he's probably an even better driver. And he's very modest about it because he doesn't really drive the cars in his videos, but he could. So I've been on a rally with him where he brought his 16 valve, and I mean, he makes that car look like a Porsche. I mean, he really just moves it around and has a lot of fun with it. They're beautiful cars. I'm a huge fan. And John, we say it all the time. We never, ever see quality Volkswagens come onto the online auction platforms. Well, here one is. JP, did you know that this car was sold brand new by Carter Volkswagen of Seattle, Washington?
Oh, look at that.
Yeah.
Carter Volkswagen. I may have actually been in this car at some point.
So are they a big dealer, and were you working with them at the time that this car was sold brand new? Because I know you did work for some Volkswagen dealerships, but I think that might have been
I
later,
wasn't working
right?
for them in 1987, that's for sure. So
Yeah.
I was a lot boy at the competitor, Pignataro Volkswagen. So Carter was up up Highway 99, closer to the city. The cool thing about Carter Volkswagen, shout out to our friends at Carter Volkswagen. I don't know. This car, look, there weren't that many of these back then, but why don't you talk about the car and we'll get to that. Carter Volkswagen.
Well, okay, so, this is basically a Mark II Volkswagen with the 1.8.
Wait a minute, hold on a second. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Which dealership? Was it Carter or Campbell Nelson?
Yeah.
Carter.
No,
Okay, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Sorry
Mark
about
II
that, guys.
Volkswagen platform with the 1.8 liter 16 valve and a 5-speed manual pushing the front wheels around. Really cool car. The first comments are like, my God, this thing is so clean. Did it ever sit in the sun? Like, it really looks nice. It looks like a car that may have been garaged most or all of its life, which is so rare. We just don't see cars this inexpensive get treated so nicely. And so I think this car is going to do really well when it closes 5 days from now. JP, I actually wanted to ask you some more questions because I just don't know. Did the Scirocco ever come with the 2-liter 16 valve, or did that only come to Mark III or later Mark II GTIs? Like was that possible to get a 2-liter?
It was only the 1.8 in America. They did make a 2-liter because the Scirocco kept on going, I think, till I want to say 93 or something like that in Europe. But the last model year in America was 1988. And that was a 1.8. It was a 1.8. All the 16 valves were 1.8s.
Okay, but that GTI we covered was a Mark II, was it not? That one that went for like 90
it was
grand?
a Mark II. Yeah, and that one was a 2-liter 16 valve, wasn't it?
So was the
or was it an 8 valve? I can't remember now.
No, it was a 2-liter 16 valve.
Okay.
So was the 2-liter an option, or was it like an 89 and then the 89 the 2-liter was the standard?
It was whatever engine was. Yeah, they never had the option to get a 1.8 or a 2-liter. It was either an 8 valve or a 16 valve. So you got the 8 valve engine or the 16 valve engine. So, but yeah, the Scirocco 16 valve was always the 1.8, and which was a big deal back then. It was a lot different from the 8 valve little 1.8. It brought a lot more power, but it didn't have as much torque as the 8 valve did. But it had a lot more on the top end. That's for darn sure.
Then you need to rev them. So black leather interior, JP, 14-inch. Those little, what do they call those? Teardrop wheels.
Teardrop wheels.
Yeah. I mean, does this car not take you back? How RadWood is this? Like this thing, I can't believe how stock and how clean and low miles. I'm telling you, John, if I had FU money and I could just throw it around, I wouldn't hesitate on putting a car like this in my collection. I absolutely, I loved it then. I love it now. What a cool car. And I think if ever there was a Scirocco that was finally going to break the bank on BaT, I think this is the one to do it. So, John, I'll send it back to you. Tell us all that love Volkswagens but don't know as much. Tell us a little bit more about these Mark IIs, and then let's talk about what we think could actually happen here.
Well, the 16 valve Scirocco, so there were two versions of the Scirocco, right? There was the Mark I and then the Mark II. But they were both built on, what is it, the A1 or S1 platform? I'm spacing. Right. It's been a minute. Unlike the Volkswagen GTI or Golf, right? The Mark I and the Mark II were different platforms. The Scirocco just continued on the same platform, but looked drastically different from the earlier Sciroccos. But the 16 valve Scirocco, when this version of the Scirocco came out, it was in 1982, and then it went all the way to 1988. But the 16 valve came out in the 1986 model, which was kind of rare. But then you saw a ton of them in 87 and hardly any 88s. By 88, they knew that they were coming out with the Corrado. So I remember there were 88 Sciroccos on the showroom floor at most Volkswagen dealers till 90, like at the same time that the Corrado was out. They made a bunch of them and they didn't sell all that well in 89.
That's funny. I don't think I was aware of that. I thought the car sold pretty well, but
well, they did in 86 and 87. I mean, they were moving like hotcakes in the late 80s, but as soon they announced the Corrado kind of early. It was sometime in 89. So they were around at the same. So even though the Corrado's first model was a 90 model, it was on the showroom floor in 80, pretty early on in 89. So, and they were advertising, it was 140 mile an hour Corrado, blah, blah, blah. And the Corrado was definitely, it was on the Mark III platform and it definitely felt better. But I don't know, for my money, I'd definitely rather have the Scirocco. We just haven't seen a single clean Scirocco come up for sale on any of the auction sites. I've never seen one on Cars and Bids, P-Car Market. Yeah. This is the first one in the years that we've been watching this closely, which is, call it what, 2019 we've been doing this, 2020. Yeah. It's just...
Yeah. And it's funny.
They never ever. We've seen some crappy ones come up, but the 16 valves with the rocker panels and the body kit, basically the slightly different interior with that 16 valve badge on the glove box and the sport leather seats and everything. Some of them had the the cloth trim, but most of them were all leather. The dashboards on these like to crack up a lot like Porsche 944s of the era, but this one seems super clean. It's so funny looking at the dash. I've owned back in the day. I probably went through 9 or 10 Scirocco's from 8 valve to 16 valve ones, and and I've taken these things apart. Like I could take apart the dashboard. I know what it looks like behind the door panels of these. I've taken every last thing apart I've rebuilt the engines. I've just spent so much time onto these, not because I'm like a mechanic or a wrench, but because, back in the day, I didn't have any money to have anybody else fix them. So it was always, I had to do it myself. And, mine always had high miles on them and we beat the heck out of them. So we had to fix them. But it's funny. The funny thing about Volkswagens that you learn when you're messing with them is how interchangeable all the parts were. So, you could take the seats out of a GTI and throw them in here or vice versa. The gear shift levers, the steering wheels, we used to mess with all that kind of stuff. But that's the thing is that a lot of guys like me who didn't have money for nice cars bought these, and we beat the living crap out of them back in the 90s. And not many of them survived. Most of them were driven within an inch of their life or were absolutely destroyed. So to see a survivor like this is just absolutely freaking amazing. This car is going to go for big money. We haven't seen that happen yet. Everybody says Volkswagens don't bring big money, but part of the problem is because you never see clean Volkswagens. So they don't, if you saw a clean one like that GTI that we talked about that went for $85,000, I think the GTI has a wider appeal, but for my money, I want this car. This car should bring that kind of money. What do you think is going to happen with this car, Michael Deeb?
So JP, back in 2020, 1987 Volkswagen Scirocco 16 valve that was in Texas sold for $35,000. It's not this car. That car only had 31,000 miles. And I actually think we covered it, or maybe we teed it up, but I don't know. It just looks familiar because it's got some funny plate on it, but maybe that's not what happened. So according to the price guide that I use to help sometimes with the things, the most money a Scirocco could possibly be worth, concourse condition, would be $55,000. But JP, I'm going to say that this one's going to break the bank, but I still don't think it's going to do what that GTI did. I still think the Scirocco is just a bit niche, and the market honestly is a little softer than the Scirocco when the GTI got its high water mark. So I'm going to temper, instead of saying like $85,000 to $89,000, I'm going to say this Scirocco has every chance in the world to sell for $75,000, and that'll still be a new high water mark. But I'm just going to temper. I'm going to go, where's the high water mark, and then just bring it back to be congruent with today's. It's not all fun and games like it was 6 months ago. So, $75,000, John, to you.
RadWood era cars are definitely the buzz right now. We saw that Prelude 2-liter SI the other day sell for like $79,000, but that car only had like
13,000 miles or something.
I think it was less than that. I think it was like 4-figure miles. I think it was like 4,000 or 5,000 miles.
Crazy.
So it was essentially a brand new car. This Scirocco is not that, and this Scirocco does not look as clean as that GTI that went for $85,000. It looks super clean, but it's not minty fresh like that GTI was. So I think your number is right. There was that Corrado that we saw that I think it was a VR6 one not that long ago, and both of us thought that one should have brought more money than the GTI. It had lower miles. It was nicer spec. It was black on black. It was, I think, 911R, one of the really good sellers.
And
that one only really brought 50 something grand, and it met reserve. So I'm going to have to be conservative. I think Volkswagen still have the Volkswagen curse. This car, your number was what, 75?
Yeah,
gosh, I'm gonna go 65. I'm gonna park about 10,000 below.
Let's see which one
I
of us
like
is
it
right.
better than the GTI or that Prelude or the Corrado. If I had FU money, I would probably pay $100,000 for this car or more. Just because I want it. I mean, looking at the Zermatt silver was my favorite color for it too.
Is that right?
Yeah. I think it really is a hot looking color.
Camissa has that car on those wheels. Like it's that car. But
doesn't our friend, what's his name? Thomas Parks, I want to say.
Oh my God.
I think he has one too. He's a Bay Area RadWood guy. He had that. He had a 964 Targa that I think he just had auto kennel sell for.
Yeah.
So he has
Yeah,
one,
yeah,
a
yeah.
silver, a Zermatt
Yeah.
silver one as well.
So-
Here's another.
so-
Okay, a little trivia for
Yeah.
you. You wanted Scirocco
Go ahead.
trivia?
Yeah. Yeah.
The 16 valves only came in 4 colors.
Oh, okay.
It was white,
Black,
red, black, or
black, and
Zermatt
Zermatt.
silver. Yeah,
Yeah.
you couldn't get
I
them
mean,
in
God,
any of the other Volkswagen colors.
That's scary close to RS America. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
yeah.
Is the Volkswagen Scirocco the RS America of Volkswagens?
Good
You know,
question.
like-
Well, the
Yeah.
RS America came in blue, right? You couldn't
Right,
You couldn't
yeah.
get this Scirocco
Blue,
in blue.
blue, black,
There was
and white,
no-
and
there
then
were no like
silver. Yeah.
you couldn't do any like paint the sample with Volkswagen or whatever. So
Yeah.
take what you get.
All right, so here's a funny one, and I'm going to say this on the air. If you offered me that Scirocco or that Mark II GTI with the round headlights and the 2-liter 16 valve,
Mm-hmm.
I think I would take the Volkswagen. I would take the GTI.
You take the GTI.
Yeah, and I love the Scirocco. Like I
Yeah.
really
the
want
GTI
one.
is probably a little bit better of a car because of the 2-liter and everything like that, and it's like
Yeah,
newer.
I think I just think it looks, spirit, like sense of occasion. I just think it's corny enough. Like
Sense
it's
of
to me,
occasion,
like,
it's way more common than the Scirocco, though.
I know, but like when
the
you
Scirocco
say
is way more of a
GTI
sense of occasion.
But when you say GTI, and you know how many years they've been making the GTI, if somebody says Volkswagen GTI, that car that we covered that went to the moon, that's the car I picture in my mind. And to me, it is the iconic GTI. I think it's the most perfect one. I wish I had it.
Yeah.
And I would, even if I could afford 89 grand to buy it, I'd still go out and drive it. I wouldn't sit on
Yeah.
it like it was precious. Just go drive it.
They both drive basically. It's hard to tell the difference. The Scirocco is a little
Yeah.
bit low, feels a little bit more slung and everything like that, but it's they're
Yeah.
basically the
Same
type
car.
of So yeah, all right. What do you guys think? 16 valve Scirocco. I am waxing nostalgic right now. Wishing I could find a nice Scirocco. Not going to happen. So this one, I won't be bidding $70,000 for this car, even though I think it could get there. There's no way that I would have to have a lot of money before. The thing is about these old cars, and part of the reason why they really haven't appreciated that well is because they're not $70,000 driving experiences. I mean, if you're going to spend $70,000, $80,000 on a classic car, it's going to be a 911,
Right.
because that's just a way, way better car. When we were kids and we were buying these Scirocco's and GTIs, we wished we had 911s. But we couldn't. So, I mean, if you already have the 911, you have that FU money, that's when you buy something like this because it's pure nostalgia buy. You're not buying this because you think it's a performance car in any way. They're not particularly fast. They do handle fun, but the torque steer, they're just their own thing. Love the cars.
Yeah.
Love them, love them, love them. What do you think is going to happen, guys? Put your bid in below, put the marker, put your timestamp in there, and let's find out what happens with this 16-valve Zermatt Scirocco right after this.
I'm a driver, and I'm going to Vegas Auto Fest. The drivers are coming. September 16th.
Hey guys, I gotta tell you about our friends Godden Porsche of Las Vegas and Godden Classic. If you're looking for a new Porsche or a classic, you gotta call our friend Steve at Godden, this guy. Save yourself the hassle of screwing around with all the auctions like we always talk about and just talk to Steve. He'll find you the classic Porsche you're looking for, Godden Porsche of Las Vegas. And Michael Deeb, he's running a MASH unit apparently
Yeah.
in the future here. Welcome back to Bid Nerds, everybody. Thanks for hanging out this long. We love the nerd herd. You guys are rad. You want to know what happened with this Scirocco. And Michael Deeb has the results of the Scirocco. So let's find out so he can go back to fishing or hanging out with Radar or something like that. I don't know.
Hot Lips Houlihan.
Hot Lips Houlihan.
JP, you and I were gushing over this 1987 Volkswagen Scirocco 16 valve that's basically stock in your favorite Zermatt silver colorway, and with just 74,000 miles. Ironically, JP, this car is for sale in Middletown, Connecticut. I'm coming to you from Middletown, California. The irony. JP, I obviously got a lot of sun on my head last week, and always the eternal optimist. I thought this car was going to break the bank at $75,000. I have a laugh with that number now. You said $65,000 when you had a laugh with that number then, and then our car sold for $46,000 on 35 bids. Now, if you take my bid and your bid away and just look at the result, you'd be like, damn, that's a lot of money. It only looks like a small number compared to our overly, eagerly optimistic bids. And I love that we get it wrong all the time. But still, 46,500 is a really strong number for any Volkswagen. And still, JP, can you remember a higher watermark for a Scirocco? I'm curious to see when this result gets posted on classic.com, if it's not the high watermark for the last, probably almost 8 years, 9 years. That might be the strongest number we've seen for a Scirocco. So congratulations to everybody involved. JP, you had a great week. I think your third win on the trot. What do you think of that number? Our ridiculous bids aside.
Well, yeah, we overshot it because, like we said, what we mentioned, everyone keeps talking about that 92 or 91, something like that, GTI, that Mark II GTI with 50,000 miles on it. It just brought $80,000. That's like the high water mark for kind of a Mark II or 80s era Volkswagen. But we've seen some really nice Volkswagens come to market. We both thought that the Corrado SLC that showed up by, that one would bring, that GTI kind of number. We thought this car, I just like Scirocco's more than GTIs. I love GTI, Mark II GTIs, but I'm taking this Scirocco all day long. I mean, there's just like not even, it's a Scirocco. I mean, come on. That's a much more rare car, much more interesting Volkswagen, in my opinion, even though the driving characters, I mean, they're basically the same damn cars, just squished a little bit. So I was hoping Corrado, that go ahead. I mean, the Corrado is a Mark III. It's like a different car, but it's definitely way better performance with the VR6 and everything like that. The 16-valve Scirocco is just it's so 80s. It is the 80s. Yes. And really, it's kind of the 90s car, the early 90s car. I know it wasn't built in the early 90s, but for guys like me or maybe even you of this age bracket, that was a performance sports car that we could afford, that was attainable. There were definitely better cars out in the 90s, but like when the Corrado came out, it was so darn expensive. That's why the Corrado doesn't exist anymore. It was too expensive. It was competing against cars like 300ZXs that were way better, frankly. But the Corrado was as much or more. So here, this little 16-valve Scirocco, these were on the used market in 93, 94, 95. And, that's when you could get one of these back in the day. We've said it over and over again. It's just this high money, this dollar amount reflects a car that is actually in excellent condition. You never see Scirocco's that are in excellent condition. They just don't exist. You're not going to see... how often do we see a number like this, and then the market will get flooded with lesser Scirocco's? There's going to be a bunch of $120,000, $150,000 beat up Scirocco's that people are going to think, I want my reserve to be 42. If that one, it's like, no, get out of here. Your car's not worth anything. Hopefully this brings some nicer Scirocco's to the market, though. If people have been sitting on a nice Scirocco, they go, hey, I can actually get the real money for it.
Absolutely. And that Corrado is a great comp, JP. If you remember, it was a 93 SLC with 15,000 miles. And inversely, you and I both went over. I said 68, you said 80, and the car sold for $51,000. Same thing here. I went way over, you went a little bit over, and the car sold for 46.5. So they're really good comps. Considering the money is sort of the same, I'm just going to guess you'd rather have the Scirocco.
Yeah, I mean, it's just it's always going to be the Scirocco, but I'm a little I'm biased in that regard because I had so many of them. That was kind of that car was a big deal in my life back then. Corrado's the better car, though, there's no doubt.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, but I don't think that's what's important here. I agree. I hope this result encourages more people to bring their Scirocco's to market, and I hope we see a few more, even if they're high miles, stock, because it really is. It's such a nostalgic car for our generation, and I love them.
It's the kind of car that, look, guys our age, we probably have things like Porsches or Ferraris or whatever in the garage, so we already have the car that is like the car that we want. And more, and maybe that doesn't mean that we have anything we want. I mean, sure, there's always, I'd love to have more expensive Porsches and stuff like that. But when I was able to afford this Scirocco back in the day, in those early 90s, and that's the car that I drove and loved, I wanted a 911. Okay. So now I have a 911, and now when you're looking back at adding something else to the garage, how much space do you have? How much money do you have? How much time do you have to drive these things? You look at something like a 16-valve Scirocco or a Corrado SLC. Those cars are around the same price if all things are equal, if condition and miles and stuff like that. Which one would you rather have? It like you just said, it doesn't come down to the performance numbers. It comes down to which one did you have, which one brings you more nostalgia, which one brings back the memories. The Scirocco is going to bring back more memories than a Corrado for me, so it's definitely going to be a Scirocco. Someone else might have a different matrix for making that decision, but I think generally it's going to be the car that is going to bring back those memories more than any performance stats, or which is if it just comes down to getting a performance car, that's a whole different story. But I don't think a 16-valve Scirocco is high on someone's list at $50,000. There's a lot of other cars that you can get, even in today's market of inflated prices. Even if they're corrected, prices are still high.
I think
there's other cars you're getting for
the car that comes to mind at $50,000 is an E36 M3. I think you get a really nice one of those.
One of the nicest ones. I mean, you can still get a 911 for $50,000. I mean, I know that it's not going to be the nicest 911, but you can easily get a decent SC or a Targa Carrera or something like that. Or if you're willing to have a convertible 911, there's all kinds of options. So other options out there. What do you guys think of the results of the 16-valve Scirocco? Is that all the money? Are we ever going to see a number that high again, or do you think the floodgates are open, all the nice Sciroccos are going to finally come to market? Let us know in the comments below. And Michael Deeb, hit the dock. See ya.
Get those words!